Learning outcomes. Learning outcomes are statements that describe the knowledge or skills students should acquire by the end of a particular assignment, class, course, or program. They help students understand why that knowledge and those skills will be useful to them. Focus on the context and potential applications of knowledge and skills. Connect learning in various contexts. Help guide assessment and evaluation. Good learning outcomes emphasize the application and integration of knowledge instead of focusing on coverage of material and learning outcomes articulate. How a student will be able to apply the material both in the context of the class and more broadly. Consider using approximately 5 to 10 learning outcomes per assignment. The number allows a learning outcome to cover a variety of knowledge, skills, while remaining a focus on essential elements of the course. Learn how you can add learning outcomes to your courses. Examples of learning outcomes. For reference, Bloom's taxonomy of relevant action verbs. By the end of this course, the student will be able to predict the appearance, the motion of visible celestial objects, formulate scientific questions about the motion of visible celestial objects, plan based model, or stimulate an answer to the question chosen. Select and integrate information from various sources, including electronic and print resources, community resources, and personally collected data to answer the question chosen. Communicate a scientific idea, procedure, result, conclusion using appropriate unit, language, and form. Describe, evaluate, and communicate the impact of research and other accomplishments in space technology on our understanding of scientific theory, principle, and other fields of endeavor. By the end of this course, the student will be able to ask questions concerning language with confidence and seek effective help from reference sources. By the end of this course, the student will be able to analyze qualitative and quantitative data and explain how evidence gathers support or refuses an initial hypothesis. Vague outcome. By the end of this course, the student will have added to their understanding of the complete research process. More precise outcome. By the end of this course, the student will be able to describe the research process in social invention, evaluate critically the quality of research by others, formulate research questions designed to test, refine, and build theories, identify and demonstrate facility research design and data collection strategies that are most appropriate to a particular research project. Formulate a complete and logical plan for data analysis that will be adequately answer research questions and probable alternative explanations. Interpret research findings and draw appropriate conclusions. By the end of this course, the student will be able to identify most frequently incorrect endings for nouns, adjective, verb, as well as some of more complicated points of grammar such as aspect, other aspects of the verb. Translate short unseen text from the book, the read basic material relating to current affairs using appropriate reference words where necessary. Make themselves understand basic everyday communicative situations. By the end of this course, the student will be able to identify several learning style models, know how to use these models in your teaching, construct and use learning objectives, design a course and syllabus, implement the principle of universal instructional design, the design of the course, use a strategy, instructional method for effective teaching of small classes, identify the advantage and disadvantage of different assessment methods, construct a teaching profile. why we need to develop learning outcomes for students. By focusing on the application of knowledge and skill learned in the course, on the integration of knowledge and skills with other areas of their life, students are more connected to their learning and to the material of the course. The emphasis on integration and generalizable skills help the student draw connection between course and other kinds of knowledge, enhancing student engagement. Students understand the condition and goal of their assessment. For instructor, developing learning outcomes allows for the reflection on the course content and its potential application, focusing on the knowledge and skills that will be most valuable to the student now and in the future. Learning outcomes point to useful method of assessment. Learning outcome allows instructors to set the standard by which the success of the course will be evaluated. For institutions and administrators, when an instructor considers the particular course and unit in the context of future course, the curriculum as a whole, it contributes to the development of a current curriculum with a decentralized institution and helps to ensure students are prepared for future work and learning. The application and integration of learning emphasized by learning outcomes reflect, support the contemporary nature and priorities of the university, enhancing student engagement, uncovering opportunities for interdisciplinary and providing guidance and support for students with many different kinds of previous academic preparation. Learning outcome provides structure from which courses and programs can be evaluated, can assist in program, curricular design, identify gaps or overlapping program offerings, and clarify instructional and programmatic and institutional priorities. Learning outcome as a statement that describes the knowledge and skills students should be acquired by the end of particular assignment, a class, course and program, and then help the student understand why that knowledge and those skills will be useful to them. Focus on the context, potential application of knowledge and skills, help guide assessment and evaluation. Good learning outcomes emphasize the application and integration of knowledge. Instead of focusing on coverage of material, learning outcomes articulate how students will be able to apply the material both in the context of class and more broadly. Consider using approximately 5 to 10 learning outcomes per assignment, and this number allows the learning outcome to cover a variety of knowledge and skills while retaining a focus on essential elements of the course. Or value as a result of taking a course or completing a program. Learning outcomes often take this form. As a result of participating in program or course, the student will be able to various action work and learning statements. Some examples are: student will be able to describe the key characteristics of the different classes of planets. Student will be able to explain economic institutions such as Federal Reserve and stock market. Looking at the previous sample learning outcomes, imagine what course lecture might involve, what learning activities might be effective, and how student learning might use learning outcome as a tool that is, let them inform your choice of teaching strategies, course activities, and assessment. Purpose of setting learning outcomes. Setting learning outcomes will make it easier for instructors to make hard decisions about choosing course content, design assessment that lets students demonstrate their knowledge and skills, design teaching strategies or learning activities that will help students develop their knowledge and skills, give student learning accurately and effectively, having access to articulated learning outcomes in a syllabus. For example, help students decide if the course is a good fit for their academic trajectory, determine what they need to do to be successful in the course, take ownership of how their progress, be mindful of what they are learning, developing learning outcomes. First, ask yourself, what are the most significant things a student should do? Cognitive, be able to, that is skill, or value, effective, after completing the course or program? Consult a list of action points, which are verbs that result in overt behavior or product that can be observed and measured. Bloom's taxonomy of educational objectives gives some useful work to write objective for different level of learning. Do not use verbs that are unclear and cannot be observed and measured easily. For example, appreciate, become aware of, become familiar with, know, learn and understand. Draft a list of probable learning outcomes. Be realistic in considering what is possible for a student to achieve in your course. Only keep the most essential learning outcomes. Setting learning outcome is the first in a 5 process. That is your outcome, what we want the student to be able to do after the course. Second is identify where in the curriculum are outcomes addressed. Third is measure how well are students achieving the outcome. Revision, what changes can be made to the course to improve student achievement. Remeasurable, did the revision to the curriculum work? Creating learning outcome. A learning outcome is a concise description of what the student will learn and how learning will be assessed. Having clearly articulated learning outcome can make designing a course, assessing student learning progress and facilitating learning activities easier and more effective. Learning outcome can help students regulate their learning, develop effective study strategies. Educational research uses a number of terms for this concept, including learning goals, student learning objectives, sessions, outcomes, and more. In alignment with other resources, we will be used learning outcome as a general term for what a student will learn and how that learning will be assessed. This includes both the goals and objectives. We will use learning goals to describe general outcomes for an entire course or program. We will use learning objectives when discussing more focused outcome for specific lesson or activities. For example, a learning goal might be, by the end of this course, the student will be able to develop coherent literary argument. Whereas a learning objective might be, by the end of week 5, the student will be able to write a coherent thesis statement supported by at least 2 pieces of evidence. Learning outcomes benefit instructor. Learning outcomes can help instructor in a number of ways. First, for providing a framework and rationally for making course design describe about the sequence of topic and instruction, content selection and so on. Communicating to students what they must do to make progress in learning in your course. Clarifying your intention to the teaching team, course guest and other connects. Providing a framework for transparent and equitable assessment of student learning. Making outcomes concerning values and benefits, such as dedication to discipline-specific values, more concrete and accessible, making inclusion and belonging explicit and integral to the course design. Learning outcome benefit student. Clearly articulated learning outcome can also help and guide and support student in the own learning path. Clearly communicating the range of learning student will be expected to acquire and demonstrate, helping learners concentrate on the area that they need to develop to progress in the course, helping learner monitor their own progress, reflect on the efficacy of their study strategy and seek out support or better strategies. Choosing learning outcomes. When writing learning outcome to represent the aim and practice of a course or even a discipline, consider What is the big idea that you hope students will still refrain from the course even years later? What are the most important concepts, ideas, methods, theories, approaches, and perspective of your field that students should learn? What are the most important skills that students should develop and be able to apply in and after your course? What do students need to have mastered earlier in the course or program in order to make progress later or in a subsequent courses? What skill and knowledge would a student need if they were to pursue a career in this field or contribute to communities impacted by this field? What values, attitude, habits of mind and effect would students need if they are to pursue a career in this field or contribute to communities affected by this field? How can learning outcomes span a wide range of skills and serve students with different level of preparation? How can learning outcomes offer a range of assessment type to serve a diverse student population? Use learning taxonomy to inform learning outcomes. Learning taxonomy describes how a learner understands, develops from simple to complex when learning different subject or tasks. They are useful here to identify any foundational skill or knowledge needed for more complex learning and for matching observable behavior to different types of learning. Bloom's taxonomy. It is a hierarchical model and includes three domains of learning: cognitive, psychomotor, and affective. In this model, learning occurs hierarchically as each skill builds on previous skills towards increasingly sophisticated learning. For example, in the cognitive domain, learning begins with remembering, then understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and last creating. Taxonomy of significant learning. The taxonomy of significant learning is a non-hierarchical and integral model of learning. Describe learning as a meaningful, holistic, and integral network. This model has six interesting domains: knowledge, application, integration, human dimension, caring, and learning how to learn. How to write learning outcome. Writing learning outcome can be made easier by using the ABCD approach. This strategy identifies four key elements of an effective learning outcome. A for audience, B for behavior, C for condition, D for degree. Audience. Define who will achieve the outcome. Outcome commonly include phrases such as, after completing this course, student will be able to, or after completing this activity, workshop participants will be able to. Keeping your audience in mind as you develop your learning outcomes help ensure that they are relevant, centered on what learner must achieve. Make sure learning outcome is focused on the student behavior, not the instructor. If the outcome describes an instructed activity or topic, then it is too focused on the instructor's intention and not the student. Try to understand your audience so that you can better align your learning goals or objective to meet their needs. While every group of students is different, certain generalization about their prior knowledge, goals, motivation, and so on might be made based on course prerequisites, their year level or methods. Behavior. Use an action verb to describe observable behavior that demonstrate mastery of the goal objective. Depending upon the skill, knowledge, domain of the behavior, you might select a different action verb, particularly for learning objectives, which are more specific. Avoid verbs that are vague or difficult to assess, such as understand, appreciate, or know. To behavior, usually complete the audience pressure. The student will be able to, with a specific action verb that learner can interpret without ambiguity. We recommend beginning a learning goal with a phrase that makes it clear that the students are expected to actively contribute to progress towards the learning goal. For example, through active engagement and completion of course activities, the student will be able to. Examples of action verb. Consider the following examples of verb for different learning domains of Bloom's taxonomy. Generally speaking, items listed at the top under each domain are more suitable for advanced students. Items listed at the bottom are more suitable for novice or beginner students. Using verb and associated skill from all the domains, regardless of your discipline area, can benefit students by diversifying the learning experience. For cognitive domain, first is create, investigate, design. Second, evaluate, argue, support. Third, analyze, compare, examine. Fourth, solve, operate, demonstrate. Fifth, describe, locate, translate. Sixth, remember, define, duplicate, list. For the psychomotor domain, first, invent, create, manage. Second, articulate, construct, solve. Complete, calibrate, control. Fourth, build, perform, execute. Copy, repeat, follow. For the affective domain, internalize, propose, conclude. Organize, systematize, integrate. Justify, share, persuade. Respond, contribute, cooperate. Capture, pursue, consume. Often we develop broad goals first, then break them down into specific objectives. For example, if goals for the learner to be able to compose an essay, break it down into several objectives, such as forming a clear thesis statement, coherently ordering points, following a salient argument, gathering and quoting evidence effectively, and so on. Condition. State the condition, if any, under which the behavior is to be performed. Consider the following condition. Equipment or tool, such as using a laboratory device or a specified software application. Situation or environment, such as in a clinical setting or during a performance. Materials or format, such as written text, a slide presentation, or using a specified material. The level of specificity for condition with an objective may vary and should be appropriate to the broad goals. If the conditions are implicit or understood as a part of the classroom or assessment situation, it may not be necessary to state them. When articulating the condition in learning outcome, ensure that they are sensibly and financially accessible to all students. Degree. Degree state that standard criterion for acceptable performance. The degree should be related to the real world expectation. What standards should the learner meet to be just proficient? For example, with 90% accuracy, within 10 minutes, suitable for submission of edited journal, obtain a valid solution in a 100-word paragraph. The specificity of the degree will vary. You might take into consideration professional standards, what a student would need to succeed in subsequent courses in a series, or what is required by you as the instructor to accurately assess learning when determining the degree. Where the degree is easy to measure, such as pass or fail, or accuracy is not required, it may be omitted. Characteristics of expected learning outcome. The acronym SMART is used for remembering the characteristics of an effective learning outcome. Specific, clear, and distinctive for others. Measurable, identifies, observable, Student action. Attainable, suitably challenging for student in the course. Related connection to the other objective and student interest. Time bound, it is likely to be achieved and keep student on task with the given time frame. Example of effective learning outcomes. These examples generally follow the ABCD and SMART guidelines. Art and humanities, learning goals. Upon completion of this course, the student will be able to apply critical terms and methodology in completing a written literary analysis on a selected literary work. At the end of this course, the student will be able to demonstrate oral competition with the French language in pronunciation, vocabulary, and language fluency in a 10-minute in-person interview with a member of the teaching team. Learning objective. After completing lesson 1 through 5, give images of a specific work of art. The student will be able to identify the artistic period and describe their historical, social and philosophical context in a 2-page written essay. STEM learning goal. By the end of this course, the student will be able to describe the steps in planning a research study, including identifying and formulating relevant theories, generating alternative solution and strategy, application to a hypothetical case in a written research proposal. Learning objective. At the end of this lesson, given a diagram of the eye, student will be able to label all the extraocular muscles and describe at least 2 of their actions. Using chemical database gathered at the end of the first lab unit, the student will be able to create plots, trend lines of data in Excel and make quantitative prediction about future experiments. To simply put, learning outcomes, any measurable skill, ability, knowledge or values that the student demonstrates as a result of completing a given course or a class. Effective learning outcomes can be articulated at several levels, including lesson, course, program, degree, etc. It is completely student-oriented. Describe what both the students have to learn, what the instructor will teach. The blog gives a clear picture of what learning outcomes are and what are its constituents. Advantage of learning outcomes. Even while designing a course, it is crucial to plan how its learning objective will align with the given curriculum. Such is its importance. Some of the advantages of learning outcomes are it sets shared expectations between student and instructor. Let the student set learning goals easily, help the student learn more effectively. Instructor have a clear direction while making assessment decisions, give a program level overview of learning across courses and years. Teaching without learning outcome is similar to teaching without learning. A jaggery reality is that most of the teachers are unclear about what kind of learning is desired and the criteria against which it could be assessed. The realization was perceived by the National Policy of Education in the year 1986, which revised the program of action, emphasizing that minimum level of learning should be laid down with the learner being assessed frequently to ensure the achievement of national educational policy goals. It is the understanding that paved way for the event of learning outcomes for different curricular areas. Learning outcomes was definitely a method to re-look into the whole process of teaching learning with a fresh perspective. A good learning outcomes contribute to the learning management system of an institution. It aims at focusing on applying and integrating the knowledge and skills acquired in particular unit of course program. Hence, it is crucial in any part of any institution, which cannot be dodged when developing a course content. It taps the knowledge and skill out of any student. Learning outcome is a quality assurance given to a chosen framework of study. They are the key elements used by program designers to validate and explain their external bodies. prospective student, colleague of what is expected to a successful graduate on a particular course of study. Though some staff may fondly try to forget the learning outcome, students these days pay greater attention to them, which show its inevitability. A good learning outcome should have the following prerequisites. It should follow SMART attribute. Use behavioral words that are observable and measurable. Leverage of Bloom's taxonomy. Good learning outcomes always allow that a student will describe major notions of government. The student will identify, demonstrate the varied cultural practices of the people in India. The student will explain the major trends in robotics. An appealing learning outcome has the three sections. It answers three questions about the student learning experience. First, what to do? Second, for what? Third, with what? Example of course level outcome. First, English. The student will be able to read a variety of text critically, demonstrate it either in writing, speech, by analysis, comprehension, analysis, interpretation of those texts. Chemistry. The student will show the demonstrated ability to explain the fundamental laws of thermodynamics and apply those laws to chemical reaction. Business, finance. Student will learn to complete a finance related project with efficiency along with a set of financial report. Targeted by the completion of the class, the student should be able to recall, explain, interpret, compare, differentiate, implement, judge, create. That is the outcome. There is more to learning outcome. It is followed by two more steps: forming learning activities and assessment to form a constructive alignment. The next step is to measure whether the student have met those outcomes or not. Pick relevant activities and assignment that will follow student to meet these outcomes. Can they demonstrate it through any carefully drafted exam question, project, essay, assignment, poster or other presentation? Based on above learning outcome, appropriate writing skills should be developed. For example, if the learning outcome is to be test writing skill, then the assessment can have a short essay instead of a multiple choice exam. The learning activities might have to include collaborative working in groups with a mix of peer-led training to improve the weak one. Assessment testing. Assessments are an ongoing evaluation process that helps students understand and improve learning by measuring the learning outcomes they might have achieved. This helps students have a clear idea of why they are being assessed, what they need to get higher grades in their courses. Accumulating all these outcome attainment and calculating them can be hectic and time consuming. This might even result in error if done manually. Efficient tracking of outcome can only happen with an outcome based on education software. Implementing outcome based education can guide instructors through the anticipated outcome, their requirement and effectiveness. It can thereby provide an execution for situating your courses in its appropriate curricular context. With such a software in place, setting up a threshold values and mapping questions for calculating attainment can get easier. An academic course or a program is developed successfully based on the clear idea of whom can be achieved at the end of course and program. And the program can be launched only if its learning outcomes are clearly specified and communicated in writing. Learning outcomes are like navigated to, such as GPS. Once destination is fed to GPS, the device guidelines the driver throughout the journey and takes the driver to the mentioned destination correctly without fear of losing the way. Even if the driver takes a wrong route, the GPS guides the driver and helps to join the route which leads to the intended destination. Similarly, now learning outcomes are guiding tools which guide the student to the desired result of the planned course. They also show and help the teachers the path to be followed and make the student aware what they will be able to achieve at the end of the course. And also they help the teacher and the student know the route to be followed. Learning outcomes are written statement of what the successful student learner is expected to be able to achieve at the end of the program module, course unit or qualifications. Learning outcomes need to be specified and measurable. Learning outcomes are generally written based on Bloom's taxonomy. Bloom's taxonomy explains the process of learning, hence the proved to be a powerful tool for developing learning outcomes. The concept in learning taxonomy is very simple. Before understanding the concept, remembering it well. Understand it before you apply it. Analyze the process before you evaluate it. Learning outcomes should be based on following factors. Knowledge. Knowledge about the subject. Familiarity, awareness, understanding of the subject, such as fact, information, description or skill which is acquired through the experience or education by discovering or learning. The commonly used words are list, recognize, define, etc. Cognitive. The intellectual skill should include how to apply knowledge to action, should include problem-solving skills. The commonly used words are describe, explain, identify, etc. Practical, how to design and carry out experiment. The commonly used words are demonstrate, implement, etc. Generic skill. Generic skill include problem-solving technique, key to learning. The commonly used words are analyze, compare, etc. Learning outcomes are indicator of success of an academic course and program. Learning outcomes give a clear idea of what can be achieved by joining a particular program. Whether it is a short course or a degree program, the learning outcomes should be listed, written down before the start of the course to know, check whether the course is designed, conducted perfectly based on the identified learning outcome. Teaching contest, learning activities and assessment scheme have to be properly designed to successfully complete the course program. These were the importance of the learning outcomes, and we teachers need to implement these all learning outcomes in our day-to-day teaching learning process, and we can do much good to the student. And I hope this training session has been useful to you all, and thank you very much for listening to me very